Hi, today we're going to be talking about these great box cards. It's a pop-up box card that I'm showing you, both examples. Both my examples have 8 sides, so they're octagons. They could be a hexagon, they could be a square, and I was inspired by Jennifer McGuire, always am of course, but the particular video I'll link in the comments below. And while I'm at it, please do subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and hit the little bell so you get updates. So the two cards I'll be showing you are a rooftop card, we'll call it, because I don't want copyright issues, and a butterfly card, and this is the butterfly card. The thing that differs about them is how the elements are attached and how the inside mechanism looks, just because of what's being attached to the inside, and I'll explain that. So the rooftop one and the butterfly one, their bases really aren't very different in size. Both are 4 inches wide. They're 1-inch segments, made it really easy math. They're very strong, as you can see, the way that the elements have been adhered. What's different though is the inside. Pardon me, and pardon me for clearing my throat. I just have a tickle. So there's 4 inches is the width, as I pointed out, for the base. The butterflies are on wires, the top 5 ones, so they can easily be just moved in if you're putting it in a package. And it's about 9 inches long, so a bit longer than normal. I guess I'd call it a large slimline. So for this particular butterfly card, what I wanted to do was make sure that I had an idea of how high I wanted it, which told me how high the base should be, because I think the base should be a roughly half of the size, just to give it some stability. And of course it's going to depend on the weight of the elements that you're using. And just to add here quickly that I'm also showing that the elements, the butterflies that are attached to the base, the 2 at the bottom, have black on the back, but they are attached to the base. This yellow one plus the other 4 above it are all attached to the inside piece that I'll be showing you using floral wire. There's also dies that are called a flower field, front and back, and that just gives you the silhouette of the sort of the flowers, or the wildflowers that are growing, which I'll explain in a moment. And there's the inside, and it's really just a piece that's 4.5 inches long, a 1/4 inch tab on either end to glue it onto the one side and the other of the inside of this base. And as you'll see, it's scored as well in 1-inch squares so that it kind of moves around. And it's that tab that goes from side to side inside this that you're going to glue whatever the elements are. I used a single tab in this particular one because each of those butterflies that I'm attaching, and that's the only thing I'm attaching, are attached with wire. And so I didn't need a lot of space to attach them. So here's an example of what the base could look like. This one's really tall because I'm going to show you about the die cutting on the top of it. But you'll see again there's a 1/4 inch tab along the edge, and I've got 8 sections of 1 inch each. And so if I fold it over, there's my octagon. And I have that 1/4 inch extra, which is going to be the tab that I'll attach glue to at the very, very end. But in the meantime, I just want to lay it out and show you that for the, there's the inside mechanism. It's, when I say mechanism, that's like it's just a piece of scrap. That's 4 sections of 1 inch, so it corresponds with the outside, a 1/4 inch on either end, so that's 4.5 inches in my case. And those tabs just curve in so that when you attach it onto the inside, it's going to be from one side to the middle, either or, it doesn't matter. You're going to make sure it's not on the creases. In fact, you want to pull it in from the creases a little bit and leave the inside parts of it unglued so it kind of moves around on the inside. I hope I explained that well. You're only gluing it in on the tabs at the very end. Now where you glue it in is kind of important. We know it's going to be at one edge, right to the middle, because when you fold it back over on itself, it's going to go from one side of the card to the other. But we also need to figure out where it needs to sit in terms of the position from top to bottom. And what I did for my black butterfly card was I used this die, which cuts those wildflowers. And if I wanted it, the die does not cut at the bottom, by the way. So the very bottom edge, that does not cut. So you can place it anywhere. And what I decided to do was consider where my finger is now, the very top of the base. So I thought, okay, it only cut through 1/2 when I tried to cut it through both sides of this this card base. So I ended up cutting off that back section, and then I redid this die in the same colored paper, which was the black. And then I could place it, I could glue it inside the back of the base, wherever I wanted it to. And I try and keep things at a bit of a different height. I'll show you here exactly what I mean. So when you've got the back and the front, you see it's the same die, but the plants are half an inch difference in height. So it just adds again to the variety and kind of interest in the card. So back to the base itself, what I'm going to be doing is thinking about where the tab needs to be placed once it's going in. And that, in my case, I was again going to die cut this top piece. Then I would have to place the tab a little bit below where the edge of the base is going to be, so it's not as noticeable, but you want it, you know, close enough that you can reach in and sort of glue things in if you need to. And in my case, by the way, if I had to do this all over again, I would simply make a base that was half of the total of the card, so 4.5 inches tall, and I would just glue the die cut in twice, one on the front and one on the back, and I would glue it to adhere it to the inside of the base so that you don't see as much of a seam. So when it comes to getting these elements in it, what I chose to use for butterflies was wire, so it wouldn't be seen as well, but I had 3 different widths or gauges, as they say the word in when it comes to wires, but there's a very, very fine one I'm holding there. You can't even see it. It's about hair thickness, much too fine for holding up a paper butterfly, and the other one was quite thick, and I thought it would show too much. The one I chose is about a medium gauge. Again, it's a jewelry wire, and I made sure that where I wanted to position this particular butterfly and the difference in height from where it needed to reach to the tab, to be glued onto that tab, that I had enough wire and a little bit extra. So what we're going to do is adhere one end of the wire to the butterfly itself, and I have again created an additional black backing for that butterfly to make it uniform looking when you turn the card around to look at it from the back, but it also allows me to sandwich that wire in between the 2 layers of the butterfly. And I can sandwich it in at any point on the butterfly, at any point on the wing. If I want it to come out the bottom of the body, it's fine. Wherever you want it, whatever you want it to look like. So it's worth taking time and really laying things out and positioning where you want them to go, and that tells you a lot about the wires. It is not a process that you want to rush through. It takes a while to stop and consider things, and when you're using something like wire, the beauty is that you can kind of move and reposition as you're done. And here I'm showing you that the inside tab allows, because it's 4 inches by 4 inches, it has 8 places, front and back, that you could adhere wires to. So to adhere the wire to that actual tab, I'm going to place it away from the folds, onto the tab itself, and I'm going to take a little piece of scrap paper, and once I've laid the glue down over top of the wire and the tab, I'm going to lay down the piece of scrap paper as well. So just like where the wire is wedged in at the top on the butterfly, it'll be wedged in and stronger where it's attached to the tab. And the Aleene's tacky glue or the art glitter glue, which has no glitter in it, those are the 2 glues that I prefer to use for projects like this. So I just wanted to show those to you. So same idea again, give some strength so that wire is not going to go anywhere. And another tip is just that I use these little clothespins. This one's plastic, tiny, it doesn't make any dents, and that allows me to hold together these fidgety little pieces once I've managed to get the front and back to line up, which is sometimes a challenge as the glue is drying, but in this case, yeah, I just keep them handy so that I can pinch that together while the glue is drying and everything's nice and strong before you go on to the next one, or before you adhere the whole thing. Also, you can take a pencil. Of course, we're looking at the inside of the card here. We're going to do all this before we close up that base, so you can make reference marks and things for yourself, so that you can see where the tab is going to go if you don't want to glue the tab down right away, which is also an option. Speaking of options, if you didn't want to use wire or didn't have it, you could use cardstock, or you could use this is clear plastic packaging that I'm using. It's a bit of a heavier one. And you can cut that to size. Again, keep in mind the length that it needs to be. Keep in mind the visuals when you're doing your design. So it's not just about how it looks, of course, it's how it functions. But you don't want to, if you can avoid it, you don't want to just go for function and have it not look so great. So keep that in mind. Wire is not the best for every element. It is something I wanted to use for butterflies and also for this project, because they sort of mimicked the wildflowers on the project. So once everything is all glued together, and again you've already thought about where that seam is going to go, it's not going to be very noticeable, by the way, if you've got everything nice and square. You won't really see where the seam is. And you can also put in panels in each of those sections if you want to make a change, add some embellishment to it. But you want to think about that before you close it up. And then putting the embellishments, in this particular case, what I did was put the backing, the black backing, on the embellishments that I put on the front. I made sure I did not glue them on any of the seams, because I want those folds to be able to freely fold. And in this case, I decided just to glue them down the inside of the body, so that the wings could be kind of moved out and made more dimensional. And we're paper crafters, so we do that, right? If we want to make petals pop, or we want to make butterfly wings pop, you can do whatever you want. You can move them around. And you can glue them right down if you want, as long as your elements aren't going to impair those folds. So I was showing earlier, depending on how you've got the other butterflies arranged on the top, you want to give some thought to where the best position is for the butterflies that you adhere to the bottom base. So this second card, the chimney card, same size base really. I think it's only 1/4 of an inch different if you're just looking straight at the base, but the difference really is that inside pieces. Now this one has 4 pieces. Jennifer McGuire's video will be excellent about explaining those pieces, and you can fashion them very easily yourself to fit inside your box card. And the reason I used 4 pieces instead of just 1 for this project is because in this project I've got buildings in the front, buildings in the back, and buildings in the middle. And the buildings in the middle, I can have them sort of showing in different directions or facing different directions because of the way the inside is constructed. I thought a lot in this case too about the buildings on the front and back, how much of them would be below the side of the card base, so that where I was going to glue, for example, there was enough area to glue them right to the front or to the back of the card, or to the inside pieces. And I also added panels to each of the 8 sections around it, so that it added a bit of interest. I can add more embellishments later, but I also positioned buildings all around and a chimney stack around the front and back. So you want to really be slow, again, and patient with yourself when you're positioning them, and continue folding the cards so that you can make sure everything sits nicely together. The 2 figures I gave some strength to because they sit up so high, and so that's why I added the moon to the back of their heads. I glued their arms together, I glued their legs together, except one of his legs is kind of freestanding, but it's right out in the front so that nothing impedes it. When I fold it up, the foot doesn't get bent. So that's an important thing. This is why I said be patient with yourself. It's a process. It's going to depend on the dies you're using and the sizes you've chosen and so on. So you just really need to have an idea. You may want to sketch out an idea beforehand, but just keep in mind what makes the most sense in terms of what's going to hold up well and look good. And again, here's the Aleene's tacky glue and the art glitter glue without glitter that I used for this particular project. And showing you just the side to side again, you'll see that really there's not a lot of variation in the bases, and it was that inside mechanism that really made the difference. I hope that gave you some information that will inspire you to look at your stash and look at your projects and think of them in terms of a three-dimensional box, pop-up box card. And thanks so much again for joining me.